I always keep on bringing this up because I think it is really important that people understand the state of the UK electorate. I always bring it up. When you look at the results, what are you? Are you on the left? Are you on the right? Or are you on the center? Now, it is online a bit of a meme to be a centrist, but in the UK, when you look at what people want, they tend to be either very, very more like socially conservative, or increasingly, as we are seeing in the polls, the UK is really shifting to being very, very socially liberal, which I think is a fantastic direction we are going in. I think that will be bring some really big changes, especially as the Conservatives have always very much appealed to that social conservatism, but now that is being supplanted for a whole range of reasons. The fact that you've got new generations now very much dominating, taking over the voting pool. You've got new people and new working relationships changing the fabric of society. The pandemic has changed a lot of attitudes about people's work. More and more people want home working or options to work from home. If you remember pre the pandemic, a lot of people and offices and businesses hated people working from home. You were lucky if you could work from home one day a month pre-pandemic. Now that has changed. Of course, there are still businesses fighting to get people back into the office, but you are seeing people very, very much resistant to that and basically turning around and saying, well, actually, if you do that, I'll leave. And then businesses go, can't do that because at the moment, as even now, the pandemic recruitment mess still very much up in the air. This is why I find it really interesting today. We've had this guy, a guy called Timothy Kirkhope. And now he is a peer. He's a conservative peer who wrote this for The Guardian saying, hey, we really, really need to not shift to the right because we've gone far too far to the right. We need to fight for the center ground. And then is the center where we can win some of this stuff again. And as I always bring it up, you look at the center vote, you look at those polls that were done measuring what people were saying back then, and the only group that has grown has not been people on the left, has not been people on the right. It has been the center. The center has increased by 5%, going from 30 to 35. What happens in the future? Let's say if this is done in, I don't know, next year maybe, because again, they mostly seem to be done on like a 5-year cycle. What if we get to 2025 and this is done again? And guess what? Maybe that's gone up from 35 to 40%. I keep addressing this, especially when I've spoken in the past to sort of people on the left. How then do you address that where people are coming forward for that? And they always bring up, well, people want progressive policies. And I say yes to them. Yes, they do. But you cannot shift it or sell it from a lefty point of view, even though as much as I would say, that's what I want to be, you have to make sure you get the centrists on board as well. Because if you can get the centrists on board, that is a huge voting block that, we and should be taking advantage of. And he brings this up in the article as well. So he says, there is now a huge gap in British politics, a gap that is being created by the Conservative Party looking to the right and now neglecting the centre ground. Today, the party is unrecognisable compared to when it entered the government following the 2010 general election. And many in my party have now turned a blind eye to this rightward shift. And he's right. They have done. And they turned so willingly. And it all goes back to 2015 to 2016 and that referendum. And they rode it thinking this was the right way. They rode what they thought were going to be the winds of change, which would guarantee them a decade, if not more or longer, of conservative rule. And he said this trajectory and attempts now to even offer some of the electorate a form of reform light have now been very bad for our country, our international standing, and the party itself. Whichever way you look at it, the 2024 general election was a disaster. Traditional centrist conservative voters, essentially to David Cameron's winning coalition, abandoned the party, choosing either to stay at home or vote for Labour or the Liberal Democrats. As for younger generations, estimates now suggest that the chance of someone having voted for Conservative is just 8%, behind Labour, the Lib Dems, the Greens, and Reform UK. By pandering to an ever smaller subset of electorate, we have now failed to address the country as a whole. And then he goes on to talk about his time as former immigration minister. I was against to Rwanda, but I just want to jump to the end because I think, again, this is, that call to that centrist vision that he says the party needs to get back to. And I will say this now, the party is not going back to this centrist vision anytime soon at all. So this appeal, this plea, yes, we also covered recently the Independent. It was the former the Independent candidate who was the Middlesbrough mayor, appealing to the Conservative membership, please do not choose Kimmy Badenoch because there's the wrong direction for the party to go in. They are going to elect Kimmy Badenoch. I keep on saying this. It is a fool's bet to bet on anyone else other than Kimmy Badenoch. It is just not worth it. But I just want to get back on and finish it off because I think this is very, very sort of good to do. So he says, we now have to recognize the need for change and to do it now. Politics today is now more volatile than ever, and any attempts to unite the right by morphing or even merging the Conservative Party with Reform UK could only now undermine the social cohesion not only set by my party on a path to complete electoral defeat from which it may never recover. Once again, warning about that pact or reforming with Reform UK. That, as I have always said, after this leadership election, we have to watch what Kimmy Badenoch does. Will she try a merger? Because if she does, this Farage stage of the Tory civil war could be a massive can of worms. Will she ignore them? That will also, I think, form the membership or maybe even some MPs saying, no, we should unite the right. Because they know that for the first time ever, they have actually had a serious contender which has split their right-wing vote. They could always rely, whenever the polls were open, that those people on the right would just go straight to them. Didn't have to worry about anyone else. But here they are now worrying about how much that was. And they've been worrying about it for some time. And now that nightmare has come to pass, and there's Reform MPs in Parliament. It pulled them back, stopped them winning seats. They know full well they have to tackle Reform UK in some way, shape, or form, but they cannot even figure out how to do it. And then, of course, this is where he talks about pulling the party back to what it used to be. In all of this, we must now be proudly internationalist, strengthen our relationship with the European Union, uphold the rule of law, and develop a comprehensive offer to young people to seek to unite, not to divide our society, be environmentally responsible, and return to the highest standards in public life. I would implore all Conservative leadership candidates to now embrace the centrist agenda. Bear in mind, this is being put into The Guardian. This is not going to reach Conservative leadership or any real Conservative members. I think any Conservative member reading actively The Guardian, not going to happen. Even the fact he did not try to put this in Conservative home, I think just goes to show you how much he thinks, how badly that message would be received if he put that to a Conservative audience. And I think cry as he might to say, please do not shift ever more further to the right because it will doom us, it will doom the party, we're doomed to lose, is being and is going to be roundly ignored. I have said this before. You will have the Cassandras wailing in the night, warning of the impending doom of what will happen if they go in this direction, and they will be ignored. They will be ignored, and then they can come back and go, see, I told you so. This is why I am really shocked, as I said. Why is Tom Tugendhat not going back and just giving his same offer he said last time? He said, hey, I am here again because last time I told you we need change. I am the guy who can offer you change, the change we need to go in. And in this time, he is not offering that because that message could be far, far stronger this time in this leadership election. And it only need to morph it. It wouldn't have to be like the same thing. He could morph it by saying, hey, last time I told you we needed change. I was the one only candidate in that election who was going to bring any sort of serious change, who could do that stuff, and yet he's not doing it. So even centrist candidates having to say, I'm going to leave the European Court of Human Rights. Whether he is serious about it or not, who knows? But as I've said before, it just goes to show you how far right the membership has shifted. That someone like Tom Tugendhat, who used to openly say, no, like we shouldn't leave that, it's stupid, but has to now completely U-turn on that to run in the Tory leadership contest, goes to show you how far right the Tory party has gone. And whoever takes over the party is not going to be in there long. As I've kept on saying as well, by the time you reach 2029, I think we will have had maybe even 2, maybe even 3 Conservative leadership contests. Because almost immediately there are 2 big challenges. Next year, there will be the local elections. And then after that, there will be the Scottish Parliament election and, of course, the Welsh Senate election. So how those goes for the how those go for the Tories will be a big shock point, a very, very big shock point, because I don't think they're going to crawl back any seats. I don't think they're going to win in any significant numbers. If anything, I think you're probably going to see maybe even the Lib Dems winning some certain seats. I still think you'll have Labour retain, seats in local councils, etc. Maybe you'll even see the Greens claw some seats here and there. But ultimately, I don't think the Conservatives are going to win. I think locally, even they know how bad it is. And I think you will see them not regain any big victories. I think they might win 1 or 2, but I don't think they'll win any councils. And I don't think they're, shall we say, reclamation of seats, because they're already at a historic low. Don't think they're going to win back any insignificant numbers. And that in itself could cause trouble in the leadership, and we could be seeing a Conservative leadership election possibly in 2025 if they somehow manage to get on, but they don't do well in the the Senate election or the Holyrood election. Then they're gone. They are gone after that. After 2026, that's possibly when we'll see another one, if not in 2025. And like I say, this guy being ignored. It's in The Guardian. You should not be writing this type of plea to the Conservative Party in The Guardian, because it is going unignored. It is just going to be ignored. This should be in somewhere like the Conservative Home, should be in the Telegraph, but it's not. It's in The Guardian. Why is it in The Guardian? Because the Tory party just isn't listened, isn't interested, not bothering to have a self-respective look at what went wrong in 14 years of it being in power. Until we can actually do that, there is no single chance of any substantive recovery. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. And of course, as always, click on the like, click on the share button. Links down below to help support the channel as well. And of course, we'll see you all next time.